Okay, so now let me show you what I have got. So you know what the plan for the day is. So Suniti is just going to set the context initially. Yeah. So I'm going to put her, put the spotlight on her. She'll just set this up. क्या है, क्यों कर रहे हैं, etc. I'm going to just introduce the two of you, spotlight you one at a time, and read the introduction that has been provided. And when you are talking about other things, you can actually add a little more color to that introduction in terms of your background. You'll get an opportunity to do that throughout. Okay. And then we get into the main webinar, which I'm hoping that we can finish up in about 20-25 minutes. Then we get into QA, 15-20 minutes. Yesterday's session, it took a little bit longer, but we also spent more time on introduction yesterday. So hopefully we'll be able to claw back a little bit of that time today. So we'll do Q&A and finish up with a vote of thanks. The order of questions in this main session, the main webinar session, this one, what we are going to do is we are going to start after the introduction. We are going to start with biology. You know, even for me, I've been around for a long time as a professional, but as a field, it's a little bit of a mystery to me. You know, like I was asking Suniti, so Abhishek is doing biochemistry. So is that more chemistry or more biology? What the hell is that? I honestly don't know. Okay. So what we would like you to do, and we'll start with you, Anuradha, because you are very experienced in this area. So what we'd like you to do is just unpack this whole thing around biology as a field and talk a little bit about the different streams available, right? When we talk biology, so what are we talking about? We're talking about these different streams of study and professions. And just talk about very briefly about these different streams and what is the opportunity space for professionals. Yeah, where you can become a professional scientist, you can become a professional teacher. Can you become a professional you know, doing something in industry and it's stuff like that. Just unpack that, and then we'll go back to Abhishek and get his perspective on this different streams. He's a lot more fresh in this field, so he can give us a different perspective. Right. Then we will get into your typical day as a working professional. What do you do? Yeah. So we might start with you, Abhishek, and say, okay, what do you do as a research professional? Talk a little bit, then we'll go to Anuradha. And then not design, what made you consider biology, yeah, or this current field. So we are going to take you back to your school days and, you know, 10th, 11th, 12th and beyond, and how you came to become a professional in this field is what we will tackle. Right. So be candid, even if you didn't think you were going to get into this, that's okay. Like I know Abhishek, a few things happened and you sort of got into this and then you stuck with it, even though you had an opportunity to bail out. So talk about that a little bit, because I think people want to hear those things. कि ऐसा भी होता है, ऐसा नहीं है कि एकदम clean path होता है. You know, ऐसा भी होता है, and then you have to think about, take the opportunity as they come along. We'll then get into the subject choices in 11th and 12th. I think that is pretty straightforward, but I want to touch upon the importance of maths in case you're getting into research and stuff. So we'll spend a little bit of time here. I think subject choice, science, it's very clear you have to take science, but we'll just touch upon a little bit on the math side. Then we'll get into streams, colleges, entrance exams, and preparation. What do you do in 11th and 12th if you are really passionate about this? And then post-graduation options. Okay? So lot to cover in the whatever 20-25 minutes, but hopefully we'll get through it. So that's any questions on the plan?
No, it's
comfortable.
It's good. Yeah.
Clear, yeah. Comfortable, no? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you know, we'll get into Q&A. We'll open the chat window somewhere in this phase. At the end of this, I'm going to ask them to just write down questions. Excuse me. Then Suniti will sort of anchor the Q&A piece.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So yesterday we had, so our capacity is 100. So capacity for other people is 96 because there's four of us. Yesterday we had 86.
Okay.
And people are seem to be really interested in this because most of them are staying till the end and asking a lot of questions. There are a lot of questions, by the way, about how much do you get paid. Yesterday in design
Yeah.
there were a lot of questions. Once you finish, what kind of pay scale do you get, which part of design do you get paid the best. So I mean, we may
Hmm.
say that okay abhi wo mat socho वगैरह, but that is a real thing that people have in their mind. So if you can think about how you want to address that, I'll not say one way or the other, but if you want to think about how you want to address that, please think about it. Yeah.
I
So my
think I think the pay question would not be really for me because
sure.
I'll
yeah,
address that.
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
Anuradha would be in a good
Yeah.
position to address that.
Yeah,
uh,
I could say what we get paid as PhD students, but beyond that, not
yeah.
really.
Yeah, but I'm not going to like kind of give any kind of scale of
Yeah,
or band of payment.
yeah,
I'll generally say that give an overview of, suppose if you work in the industry versus if you work in a university versus you work in a hospital,
Yeah.
okay,
what kind of payment you would be getting. So
okay,
because private hospitals, then government hospitals, and then industries, also pharmaceutical industries or biosimilars, they will have
Yeah.
all different grades of payment. So I will not really
Yeah.
touch upon the numbers, but I'll
Yeah.
give a general overview about it.
Hmm.
That's fine.
Yeah, so what tends to happen is people say, "Arey, computer science kar lo, become a software engineer, then you get paid quite well." And so वो comparison होता है कि what, तू कर ले यार, com science कर ले, बहुत opportunities है. And then so the problem is if the child is passionate about bio or
Mhm.
about pure sciences, then so I think what parents might want to hear is that you can make a good living doing this stuff. I mean, you're not going to be like not going to be living in a 1 BHK for the rest of your life and teaching in a school. That sort of image is what people may have in their heads. Ki
Hmm.
you can only become a teacher and then what are you going to get paid or work in a college. So I think that if you can clear that up, that you can make a good living doing this and live a good life while pursuing your passion, that may be a good thing for people. If you really believe that, if you don't, that's okay, say so.
No, no, no. We completely believe in that.
believe that.
Completely believe it.
So we'll
And
leave
I'm
that
sure
to you.
Abhishek will also do pretty
Yes,
well in his career.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Yeah, and it's a very, talk about the excitement, do bring out the excitement part of it, doing research, writing papers, hanging out with really bright people, and research that makes an impact in the lives of people. Do bring out the excitement if you can, because people, I think, don't understand it very well. I certainly don't understand it that well. So that'll
Okay.
be great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That'll be
Okay,
good. Yeah.
so we are all good to go.
All good, all good.
Okay, cool. So I will now go ahead and spotlight Suniti for everyone. And Suniti, when you can start whenever you are ready. We'll try and start on time. We have what?
I'll just admit everyone. Yeah.
We have 28 people in the waiting room right now.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to go grab my backup Wi-Fi hotspot. Just give me a minute. So Suniti, I will admit people.
Okay.
You can start whenever you need to. I'll keep an eye on
All
who's
right.
coming in. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think I'll start now. Good evening, everyone. Greetings from Flashcards. I'm Suniti Kulkarni, co-founder of Flashcards. So some of you may have been on yesterday's session, so you might find a bit of what I say repetitive, but just hang in there, and we're going to start with today's session real fast. So let me tell you a little bit about Flashcards. Flashcards is an education platform for 8th standard to 10th standard ICSE CBSE students, which helps them in their self-study with complete coverage of social studies, science and maths by unique self-testing methods. And we do have some of our students here attending today's lecture. Flashcards is here to help the young students in their journey to find their niche. Thank you so much for joining us in our second session of a unique program, which will give you a better understanding of the various professions and avenues that are there. The sessions will give you an insight into the life of young professionals that we have invited. They will give you food for thought. Do you think you will like doing such a course? Do you think you have the aptitude for it? Do you think you can do this as a job for 15, 20 years? Do you think you can have fun doing such a job, which is most important? The sessions will also give you an opportunity and time to research before you are at the threshold of 11th standard where you have to select your subjects. You will make a better informed decision with all of this information and the research that you will be putting in the next 2-3 years. So relax, sit back and enjoy and participate in the sessions. All our speakers are young, dynamic people who will click with the millennials. If you would like to be on a mailing list for future sessions, please save the number 80802 44981 in your phones so that you're part of a broadcast list. Over to you, Nitin.
Okay. Thank you very much, Suniti. So my name is Nitin Kulkarni. I'm the other half of the Flashcards platform. And Suniti, would you please, the number that you spoke, if you would put that in the chat window, that would be nice.
I'll do
That
that.
and the email ID, that will be great.
Yeah.
So really excited to be here with you again today. We had a wonderful session yesterday with a couple of design professionals. So today I'm really looking forward to today as well, because I don't know a whole lot about this field either. So I'm really looking forward to the two amazing professionals we have with us today. And I am going to start by introducing themselves to you. So the first person we have today is Dr. Anuradha Vaidya. She began her research career after receiving a master's degree in health sciences from the University of Pune, after which she got an opportunity to work at National Center for Cell Science in the field of stem cell biology. You must have heard a lot about stem cell biology, very cutting edge. Immediately after receiving a doctoral degree, Dr. Vaidya got affiliated with the brand Symbiosis. She has been associated with the Symbiosis School of Biological Studies since it was established in 2011. And in 2011, she completed a 2021, recently, August, she completed a decade at the school. And she has now been appointed as the officiating director of the Symbiosis School of Business, of Biological Sciences. So very, very happy to have her here. So that is Dr. Anuradha Vaidya.
Thank you,
Our,
Nitin.
our second guest today is Abhishek Pethe. I can't call him Dr. Abhishek Pethe as yet, but very soon I will. He's currently in the final year of his PhD at the University of Freiburg in Germany. Before his PhD, he finished his bachelor's in biochemistry at Mumbai University, where he was the gold medalist. He was the university topper. He's done his master's in biochemistry from MS University in Baroda, with a specialization in neuroscience. And so that's an area of interest for me. I really love that area. And a thesis in cancer stem cell biology. After his master's, he has interned for a year at the National Center for Biological Sciences, a research branch of the Tata Institute, where he was working in a lab that focuses on adult brain stem cells and their role in brain injury. So lots of very nice, good stuff happening on the brain front now. For the past 3 years, he's been studying proteins. Now, this is really deep. He's been studying proteins that transport ions across brain cell membranes and how these proteins are affected during neuronal activity. We're not going to talk about all that today. We're going to talk about other things, but welcome, Abhishek,
Thank
and it's great to have you with us. So
thank you.
we'll get into session with our panel. So if you have questions, please write them down. At the end of this session, we will open the chat window for you to type in the questions, and we'll take as many as we can in the time we have available. But we'll to get the ball rolling. The first question I want to ask is Anuradha. I want to ask you this: is biology as a field is a little bit of a mystery to many. We know biology, zoology, botany, etc. But beyond that, we really don't think about it. Many of us beyond teaching. So
Right.
just if you can unpack this profession, this stream for us, tell us what are the different streams available and the career opportunities available within them to students. That'd be great. So let's get started with that.
Right. So, Nitin, thank you so much for the introduction. And it's a very, very valid question. Since I'm already heading the School of Biological Sciences, of course, we offer programs to master's level students. But before the students can come to the master's programs, they have to complete a bachelor's program. So what I'll do, I'll go the other way around. Instead of going from master's downwards, I'll start from where the students are currently the most focus of the parents. The children are in the age group of, I think, 13 to 16. That's a very pertinent age group to actually start thinking about your future, because now we are living in a very, very competitive world. And if you want to make it in the right kind of field where you are passionate about it and you have that small inkling, where you really want to pursue something in biology, then I think this is a very, very good time to start. And I really thank Flashcardz for taking this opportunity, for allowing me to speak to such a young basically young students and their parents. So biology and its inclination in biology starts quite early, I think around 6th or 7th standard, or when you start basically having the segregation of science into physics, chemistry, and biology. But please understand that biology is not a very mutually independent course. It relies heavily on physics, on chemistry, and also on mathematics. So if you are interested in pursuing a field in biology, it is child has an inclination towards biology or science, I would say, and also towards mathematics. Okay, let's take Abhishek's example. He's currently pursuing PhD, but he is doing something. He did biochemistry. So you see the biological aspect, which is quite cohesive with the chemistry aspect. You cannot really, take each other apart. Similarly, there is a lot of physics which is applied to biology. There is a lot of mathematics in calculations, especially when you do computational remodelings, when you do bioinformatics, when you do proteomic analysis. You have to understand numbers, you have to understand calculation. When you're making some kind of molar solutions in laboratories, you need to understand. So you need to understand the perspective. You must have a good, I wouldn't say fantastic, because I myself was not very good in mathematics, but you need to get attuned to some aspect of mathematics. Statistical analysis, very, very important, when you go into research stream. So that is what you need to begin with. When you come to 10th standard, you need to, after you finish your 10th standard, of course you need to take up science in 11th and 12th. And after 12th, whether it is PCB or whether it is PCM. So in our times, it was much physics, chemistry, biology, or physics, chemistry, mathematics. And I completely, very happily gave up mathematics to realize just after 1 year that I can't leave mathematics. Mathematics is very important. So after that, do you do bachelor's programs? So in India, there is, and abroad also, there are a lot of undergrad programs. So you have very, what do you say, generic programs like bachelor's in life sciences, bachelor's in biotechnology, or you will have very focused programs like bachelor's in genetics, or bachelor's in genetic engineering, or bachelor's, in biochemistry also for that matter. And after, or bachelor's in microbiology. Okay. But after that, most of these biological sciences or life sciences, as we say, it's very, biological life sciences are analogous, synonyms, I would say. So whenever you say life sciences, you think about study of living things, so that is quite similar to biological sciences. But a small subgroup of under biological sciences is biomedical sciences. Biomedical sciences usually associated with studying aspects which have a clinical implication, which means it pertains to human beings. Biology can be for bacteria, it can be for viruses, but when you talk about biomedical sciences, it is pertaining especially for the welfare of humankind or mankind, as you say. Okay, so you have various options in India, abroad also. A lot of universities have a lot of specific exams, like you have, you have JAM, you have GATE, you have IIT AEE, if you want to get to IIT. But a lot of other universities, which are usually private universities, have their own exams. Like we have our own set of exams, where it can be a written exam, it can be an interview, or it can be different levels. First you have a written exam, then you go to the interview level, and same thing happens, literally same thing happens for master's levels. And after master's levels, you go, as you go up, you know more and more about less and less. So it's an inverted pyramid. So more you go deeper, much more deeper things about a particular subject. Like for example, again I will take Abhishek's name, because he is studying a very specific kind of protein or its mechanism, and how it affects the neuronal development, or probably how it may lead to some kind of development of a disease. For example, in his case, epilepsy. It can be any other neurological disease. So that is how you go. And after that, the cap or the feather on the cap is your PhD, which again Abhishek is doing. So it's a very long course, but at every time, especially after masters, you get stipends. So students start earning at that phase of time, plus they study. So even Abhishek is earning a stipend. We also have PhD students in our own institute, under our own university, where they're getting stipends. So that is how the career continues. Yeah.
So let me throw it back to Abhishek. So I know you're still in your PhD, but I want to go back to that original question. So after doing biological sciences, what sorts of professions are open to people?
Okay. So actually, there's quite a few professions open. I mean, like you said, we don't really think beyond medicine or teaching, but the other professions, for example, are scientists. I can, like for me, for example, as a PhD student, I can after my PhD is done, I can go for a postdoctorate where I learn to handle bigger projects, more funding. I have to deal with finances and have to write grants to get those finances. And then that sort of trains me to to lead my own lab and have my own PhD students. And apart from that, actually, you can obviously after you've done a PhD, you can also join a pharmaceutical company, food technology companies as for quality controls, for research and development of drugs, for example, in pharmaceutical companies. So there are a lot of options available. Apart from that, there is also which is kind of an off-beaten path that I had considered at one point, was that after my bachelor's in biochemistry, I was actually looking to see if I could join a law college, because then I could go into patenting law. It's not really necessary to have a biological background during patenting law, but it does help, because when you would come across patent applications, you know what you're reading, you understand what you're reading. And that is something you can navigate. So that is another sort of off-beaten profession that is available as well.
So, so let me ask you, Anuradha, it is sounding to me like it is necessary to, if you want to get into these professions, to get a PhD. Is that true? Or can I do a master's in some aspect of biology or biochemistry or some any one of these things you're talking about and get into the workforce? Is it always
Yes,
this
that definitely.
long path? Yeah.
Right. Yes. After master's program, definitely students have an opportunity to work in industries. There are a lot of industries, like you have project assistants, you have research associates and things like that. But I would always recommend that students go ahead, for a PhD program. It's good to have a sort of a stopgap and take a good exposure in the industry, especially if you have done, a major, suppose an immunology, you can work in biosimilars. You can always see how certain, kind of vaccines or monoclonal antibodies are made. It's good to have a stopgap and a work experience. But after that, if you want to really evolve into a very hardcore, focused career, it's always good to go for a PhD. That's my recommendation.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Interesting. So let us talk about a typical day so let's start with you, Abhishek. What does a typical day look like for you as a PhD person, number one? And then if you were to evolve into the scientist that you talked about, right? You become a scientist, you have your own lab and so on. What sorts of things would you be doing? What do you do today? What would you be doing if you evolve into that sort of professional?
So as a PhD student, I mainly have to focus on research and less really on finances, the financial management part. So that is quite less for me. But I have to mainly focus on research. Basically, my day would consist of planning experiments for the week, to then not just planning experiments, to get the material for the experiments as well. For example, a lot of research is done with animals, which is like mice and flies and fish. And so we need to have the necessary starting material, for example. So we would plan, let's say, animal matings, so that we can have the animals on time. And then it would be the actual experiment. And then once you get the results, you have to sit and analyze the analyze the results, and which can take hours. And there's always how do you say, there's always this discrepancy that you need to work at, and then you need to go back and look at what you've done wrong or what you did right the first time. So that is something that has to be dealt with on nearly a daily basis. And apart from that, a lot of evenings are spent reading whatever research is being done in your field, in what papers are being published, what is being done by scientists that work around you or in the same field, because you want to make sure that you're not copying something, or to build on what they have done. So it is a lot of time is spent actually reading. There's no exams, at least for me, but there are other institutes which have exams for PhD students as well, especially in the first year. But for me, I have gone through all of that. I've done my exams in my first year.
So sounds like it's mostly
Yeah.
conducting experiments, preparing for them, and learning new stuff. So reading,
Exactly.
maybe attending conferences, learning new stuff is a big part
Exactly.
of your role as a PhD. So let's, at the next level. So Anuradha, tell us about what a day in your life looks like.
So I'm on the other side of the court completely.
Yeah.
So my day is, the first thing after I enter my lab is I would usually ask some of my students as to how the work is going on, or we may plan a meeting to discuss about the data which Abhishek was just kind of mentioning about. So he will do his experiments, and then he would want to discuss with his principal investigator, the PI, or his guide, PhD guide. That's the usual terminology which is used in India. And then you kind of discuss and you work your you work your way around as to what could be the next path, or what could be the next experiment, or should he go back, or should the students go back to some previous experiments. So that is very important, because like research should continue. Our labs are open 24 hours a day, 365 days in the year. Abhishek is smiling, so he's agreeing with me. So students, PhD students work non-stop. They carry the, they are like the torch bearers of the lab. They have to really pull the chariot ahead, and we are busy sitting on the chariot and giving them instructions, or take a right or take a left. It's sort of that. And then since I also have an administrative position, I take care of certain administrative formalities, and I teach two courses. One is cell biology and the other is stem cell biology, and also a part of molecular immunology. So teaching, administration, and basically discussing and planning research coursework, as well as the coursework which goes in my institute, is something my day looks like, quite different to what Abhishek does.
So would it be fair to say, and I'm going to throw this at both of you, that even if you get into industry, let's say you do a PhD and you get into a pharmaceutical company or any other company, maybe even an oil and gas company, and you are working there as a PhD, would it be fair to say that most of these jobs will involve some amount of research and that sort of work?
That's a very good question, and I, if you don't mind, Abhishek, I would like to answer that.
Yeah.
So between you working in a pharmaceutical lab or a pharmaceutical company, I would say, and working in in a research lab, okay, it's a vast difference. I'll give you a small example. In a research lab or in an academic setup, the project belongs to you, but in a pharmaceutical company, you belong to the project. Okay, so it's, you understand. Here you have in a research setup in a university or in an institute, you have got all the liberty of testing, validating, experimenting, so of course your guide is responsible for getting that money, like the financials which the Abhishek was talking about. But in the pharmaceutical setup, there is a proper protocol. You are going to do an experiment, you're spending money on the experiment, you are answerable to the authorities if the experiment does not work out. So that happens in a typical R&D setup. You are answerable for every reagent, every pipette, or every petri dish, in which you grow cells or whatever, so you are answerable for it. So that is.
So it is a commercial setup where results are really measured against the investment being made. Absolutely. Whereas in a pure research setup like Anuradha, the one you are talking about, or one you are leading, or one that Abhishek is a part of, it is pure science research, and that is funded in a very different sort of way.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool, great. So let me now ask you, and I'll start with you, Abhishek, this time, or maybe yeah, I will start with you, Anuradha. Let me start with you on this one.
Sure.
So, and I'm going to take you back to your school time, right? So you were a student, you were a 14, 15-year-old once, like many of our participants today are.
Yes.
What made you choose this line? How did it happen? Was it an accident? Was it a very conscious decision at every step of the way? Please tell us a little bit about the journey, the thought process, the pressures, everything that went into getting you to where you are today. Particularly the time, though, in those formative years, 14 to 16, 17-year-old. Go ahead.
Right. So I was gifted with an inclination towards biology. I wouldn't lie. So I had this huge passion about bio and understanding bio, and I would read a lot. So I was like a geeky, not even a teenager, a preteen, I would read a lot. And that started from 6th standard. Actually, I realized that this is a subject that I'm just naturally very well versed with. But with that with that realization also, when I finished with my 10th, and I took up science, because of course, if you you are passionate for bio, and you need to take up science. Me coming into this field of science and research, especially, and then academia, was never planned. it was serendipity. Okay, so I never thought that, that is going to be my career, although I had an inclination towards the subject. So that's the paradox I'm talking about, and it happens with a lot of students. So I finished my 11th and 12th in science, and I scored pretty well in my 12th, and everybody said you must go for MBBS, you must become a doctor. But I don't know, I did not want to take up medicine field, although there are a lot of people who if cannot opt for medicine, their fallback option becomes a bachelor's program. That's happened with a lot of my colleagues in our era, especially because we did not have the kind of guidance nowadays. So they are very blessed. So I said, I have got good marks, and and Ferguson College is very known, especially the science stream of Ferguson is excellent. And when I went to Ferguson, look at the labs and to understand what kind of undergrad courses you have, I was very, kind of mesmerized with the zoology department, because you go there and, in paraformaldehyde, you will see all those, preserved specimens. Okay, and the microscope. And I said, I must go into something like this. So again, you see, nothing planned. I went, I saw the labs, I saw the entire department. I was happy, and I said, this is something I want to do. And I ended up doing it. And after that also, but after my bachelor's, students, they start getting carved out. Although a lot of my colleagues, they went into some other fields like MBBS, some went into, environmental science, despite of pursuing biology, zoology. Some went into geology also, so you can have these, what you say, horizontal transfers once you have the basic fundamentals of science if you have studied, and mathematics if you have studied. So but I was quite focused. I said, no, after I do zoology, from mammals I want to go into humans, because that is where I was kind of inclined towards biomedical sciences. So that's when I pursued a master's in health sciences, and that's where I got exposed to very core subjects or fundamental subjects pertaining to life sciences or biological sciences, like biochemistry, you have genetics, you have molecular biology, you have biochemistry, you have microbiology, you have virology, you have biostats and things like that.
So we'll come back to that in just a moment about the streams and the preparation, etc. But I want to go back to Abhijit, because I understand you have an interesting history to how you ended up with biochemistry. So tell us a little bit about your thinking, thought process, interests, what drove you, and how you came to be where you are.
Actually, it is a very interesting journey with with some really tough decisions that people around me did not agree with at the time. I actually wanted to be a veterinary doctor since I can remember. Honestly, it was actually very with surprising clarity that I wanted to be a vet. My aunt was a vet, and it was like I had everything like in place that I would be a vet. And but after my 12th standard, I at that time we had CET, not NEET, right? So in CET, I did not score very well in my first year, like after my 12th standard. So I did not actually get admission in veterinary science in the Bombay Vet College. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to join a bachelor's course for 1 year. And bachelor courses at that time, at least the perception was that bachelor courses are slightly easier. So that would give me enough time to study and reapply next year, give the exam again the next year. And so that's what I did. So then I joined BSc in biochemistry. And at the end of my first year, that was also the year where they switched from CET to NEET. So there they introduced like negative marking and all of that. And I think that sort of worked in my advantage a little bit, because it was the first year of the format. So I scored pretty high. And I ended up getting on the list for veterinary college. But by that time, because I'd been exposed for 1 year with biochemistry, I was, and we had really passionate teachers in my college, where they really encouraged us to go out of our way, out of the curriculum, to pursue other projects that usually are not done at a bachelor's level, and do more courses, more practical courses. So by the end of my first year, I'd actually fallen in love with the whole course. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to leave the veterinary admission that I've gotten, and I'm going to keep on pursuing this, which was actually not something that a lot of, like, especially my parents, they were like, what are you doing? You wanted to be a vet, and, you know, why are you leaving this now? So they sat me down and they said, okay, you know what? Like, it's fine if you want to do this, but then you do realize that you would probably have to do, you definitely have to do a master's, and probably also have to do a PhD, because if you want to be somebody, even if you want to join the industry or if you want to do research, you have to do a PhD. Otherwise, there is, you know, the career opportunities for you would be quite limited as such. So I said, I know that, you know, and I'm ready for those years of effort. So that's how I am where I am right now.
Nitin, you are on mute.
Okay, sorry about that. So unlike Anuradha, who had this clarity and then went with that, you took a U-turn. In retrospect, has it been worthwhile? You think you are happy doing what you're doing, or you still pine for the vet option?
No, absolutely, I'm okay. I'm really, really fine doing what I'm doing, because every day is, you know, something new is happening in the lab. Everything, you know, like, something works, something doesn't work. Sometimes you get really excited about some really promising stuff that's come up, and yeah.
Okay, so let's take it to the next step, which is a question for a lot of parents and students. That, okay, if I am really passionate about biology, I want to get into pure sciences, and you've laid out some of the professional possibilities, the fact that PhD is generally a good thing, and so on. What do I need to do in 11th and 12th? I mean, how do I think about admissions, preparation, coaching, and all of that? So tell us a little bit about how to put it all together in 11th and 12th, and the sorts of things that I must do as a student. So any one of you start, and then we'll get the perspective from the other person.
Can I start on this?
Please go ahead.
Sure.
Yes. Okay. So I would. So at least when I was in 11th and 12th, if you selected PCB, maths came with it. So we did not have an option to select maths. I assume like now you have the option, but my case was similar in the sense that I really hated maths. I really hated maths and physics. But you know, those were things that I had to do if I wanted to do biology. The other option is, I know that some universities also offer they have elective subjects, which is so I had PCMB and IT. And IT is a course I feel that really helped me in the long run, because there's a lot of now, especially biology is sort of merging with computer science, in the way that you need to write some programs, you need to write some algorithms, and having a little bit of a coding and programming background from 11th and 12th helped me right now during my PhD to sort of work on my experiments and my data. And it will continue to grow in the future, that's for sure, because computers are now needed everywhere.
Yeah, so, I mean, genetics, now you can't do genetics without without computer software. Yeah.
So you writing those algorithms and everything, it helps to have this IT background.
So Anuradha, 11th and 12th, what do kids need to, what do students need to do for the next step? Preparation, entrance exams, colleges, just lay that out for us a little bit, please.
So first of all, for any kind of master's, a bachelor's program for in the field of biological sciences, nowadays the cutoff is also quite high, especially if you want to get into ICERs and you want to get to IITs, and you want to get into the universities which are within the 50 top ranking as per the national, as per some kind of criteria like Times, NIRF, and a lot of parents are aware about it. So you need to have some kind of decent CGPA. So now during our time it used to be a percentage, but now it's usually CGPA. So ideally a CGPA of 7 or higher is expected for a student who is passing out from 12th and wanting to get into biological sciences. Secondly, I would also say that the students should also, of course, like IT, or I would say more so computer savvy, and to understand and be able to use some of the basic, I wouldn't say programs as such, but if a student is inclined, of course they can do a course side by side. But you need to be a little computer savvy, you need to be a little tech savvy, and you also need to get a habit of reading, understand logical reasoning. Okay, try to solve certain kind of questions, and a lot of such kind of data availability and websites are there where you can improve your logical reasoning. Research writing is something I would really ask parents to allow their children to take up some kind of a course, because research writing is quite different as compared to normal writing of answers which usually children do in their 11th till 12th. So there are a lot of very nice soft courses also, and when I say soft courses, online courses for students to take up such kind of research writing, and understanding what are the other concepts which are important for pursuing a career in research. So that is one fundamental thing which I think students must understand, and parents should give some time in grooming. And last but not the least, I would say that there are a lot of entrance exams. Okay, try to understand and try to gauge by doing your own research. That is very important. Don't follow the band, don't follow the masses. Do your own research. Understand what interests you in science, what you're passionate about. Like if you're interested in genetics, okay, then try to do some homework about genetics. Try to see what kind of universities are offering what kind of programs. And for undergrad students, I would also always recommend, with my own experience, because we also have a lot of students coming from faraway places and also from foreign, So try to look at a place which is around your hometown, a university. And if you're comfortable in your formative years during your undergrad, then before your masters, you can go a little further away, because a lot of times students have been staying home throughout their schooling and college and undergrad, and then they want to come for masters programs, and they cannot, they need the family support, and they usually drop off. So these are some of the, this is my experience. So I think that would be all. Yeah.
Okay. So lots of courses, lots of colleges, lots of entrance exams. Do your research, figure it out. So you talked about some of them, like ICER has an entrance exam. If you want to get into IIT in order to do these, I didn't know that biology was available in IITs. So I studied in an IIT myself a long time ago. I had no idea. I knew about MS Physics, MS Chemistry. I didn't know biology is available, but yeah, I'm sure it is now. So those sorts of things that you need to grapple with at that time. Now, one final thing I want to ask, because this is again a question that is in the minds of a lot of people. For pure sciences, should people be seriously looking at options abroad, or focus your attention only on options? Is money the only consideration, or are there other considerations looking at foreign versus Indian options?
Okay, I just want to I want to say something about that actually. I would actually suggest, because I have looked at bachelor's courses that are here, and even in other countries in Europe, and I would honestly suggest that doing a bachelor's course in India is more advantageous than doing a bachelor's course here, because I felt that the bachelor's courses in India covered a lot more ground and went in depth and covered a lot of basics that are not really covered here, and that actually is a drawback that foreign universities have here, at least European universities have. So I would actually suggest that if people do want to pursue bachelor's, they stick to bachelor's in India, and then think about doing courses abroad, whether it's for master's or PhD.
Okay, so Anuradha, your perspective on that?
So I totally agree with what Abhishek is saying. I think it's always good to pursue a bachelor's program in India. until and unless you have very strong, again I would say, a family support or somebody sponsoring you, because see, everybody doesn't have that kind of money, and bachelor's programs are not cheap. They don't come cheap, whether it's in US, Europe, Australia, or Japan also. That's where most of our students go. So it's always good to do a bachelor's program in India. I would go one step further, and I would also say do a master's program also in India, because master's programs in India are excellent programs, as good as the programs abroad, or look for joint program wherein you can have 1 year in India and the other year in Australia or in somewhere else in the US. So there are a lot of universities, including IIT and ISERS, and in fact, even our university has come up with this kind of collaborative programs that we call, where you have a lot of student exchanges, faculty exchanges, dissertation exchanges, and you pay probably just 20 or 25% of the fees. Otherwise, you would have ended up paying huge, it's huge. Actually, depends from country to country. So you can look for such kind of programs, and could also have a good international exposure during your master's programs as well when you're pursuing it in India.
Okay, so the final question, which is quite which all of us think about when we are thinking about pure sciences. So when we talk about biological sciences, to you, I'm going to go to you, Anuradha, first.
Mhm.
Can one make a good living? Can one make a really good living pursuing these professions? Or are we, talking about, not getting paid very well and so on and so forth? What's your view on that?
So like I already said, and I tell all my students, PhD, if you want to, really become somebody who's well known in your domain area of research, PhD is must. See, because what happens with just a master's program, you don't get that kind of growth in the industry, because your bosses usually are all PhD holders. They have done a postdoc abroad and they have come back, and now they want to settle back in India. So have these big positions in pharmaceutical companies, and the same happens in academic setups. For example, in my domain, if I want to recruit a faculty member, I would want to, him to be a PhD holder plus a postdoc of 3 to 5 years somewhere abroad, with a good track of publication, and plus XYZ, some more nitty gritties. So if you have a PhD, if you can really work on your CV very well. When I say that, means you try to get as many publications as you can, try to attend good number of conferences, do a lot of other supportive courses. Like one I would like to mention is what Abhishek said, something in IPR, intellectual property rights. A lot of our students, they take these credits from other faculty, because we can come under the faculty of health science, so they pick up credits from the faculty of law, for IPR. So try to get that all around, development for you, and make your CV very strong, and then you definitely will get picked up like a piece of hot cake from abroad or from outside universities, with full sponsoring, full sponsorship for your PhD or even for your postdoc. And definitely I would say, and I would vouch on it, our students are doing it. They are making excellent careers in this particular area.
You can make a good living. Okay, that's music to my ears. Okay, Abhishek, your perspective on that from what you know.
From what I know, at least I can definitely say for PhDs, is that you make a very decently living, in the sense that you can not only, for example, even in India and here as well, you can live very comfortably. You can even enjoy like going out for dinners, and you still have savings at the end of it. It's not like you have to live really frugally, and you're eating only rice every evening for dinner. It's not that kind of living.
You are saying as a PhD student, right? You are saying as a PhD student, you are very comfortable during your PhD, but even beyond. So what I'm talking about, what people get concerned about is, what I'm going to end up as a teacher. I don't have too many options, and it's basically I'm going to sacrifice a good standard of living for my passion. That is not the case according to you?
No,
you're not
all.
sacrificing a standard of living for your passion. You can make a
Not
pretty good living, and but you have to be good. Yeah. Yeah.
But that
Okay.
applies to all fields.
That
You have
applies to
be
all fields. You have to be good, otherwise you get stuck. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. That's great. So I'm going to open the chat window. So if you have questions, I hope it's open now. You can start typing in your questions in the chat window, and we will start taking them. Suniti will help us get through that process.
Okay. So the first question is from Samarth. Regarding return on investment, I did expect that even pure research, non-corporate setup needs to show results as funding is always limited. So how is ROI ensured in pure research setup? And okay, we go ahead and answer that one. And then there's another question that's I'll ask. This one.
So he wants to know that suppose if there's a certain kind of investment. So he's talking about a sort of a industrial setup or a pharmaceutical setup, if I understand. And
no, even in your setup, I think the question is that it doesn't have to be just a commercial industry setup, but even like in a pure research kind of setup, there would be some expectation of ROI.
Yeah, right. So usually universities and academic setups, they come under the non-profit organization, and they usually don't have any kind of, we don't have to really look at returns. It's more in returns in terms of research outcome. So suppose if some, government body has funded my research, like Department of Biotechnology, for example, and they've given me some sort of money for, say, period of some time, they will always want to find out that how do I give them back. It is never in terms of monetary benefits for such kind of funding agencies. Usually it's in the, they will want some kind of research output, training of manpower. How many manpower have you? Okay, if you've bought some instrument, how well that instrument is functioning. Are you making it kind of available for other people from outside universities? Are you promoting collaborative research? How many master students have you trained under them, and things like that, right? I hope somewhere
Okay. So the second question by the same person is, what is the one thing that makes you most happy and the one thing that you dislike the most of being in the field of biological sciences? So, both of you can answer that. Yeah.
So one of the things that actually makes me happy, and this is, it's actually very surprising. I've been in this field for now 5 years, and every time I look at a cell under the microscope, I still get really, really excited. I don't know why. It's just this, every single day you're learning something new, you're doing something new, you're thinking something new, you learn to think out of the box. Sometimes there's like some techniques that are not available, so you're going and learning, and you're sort of adding to your knowledge bank every single day. So it's actually, that is something I really enjoy about this field. And what I dislike, I would say, for I think one of the most important, I think now especially, is that you sort of have to you have to learn to step back at some point, because if you're doing a PhD, it can be quite grueling, where you have to work really long hours, really hard, and at some point you need to learn, and you learn this through bad experience, unfortunately, but you need to sort of learn to step back a little bit and concentrate on thinking about your own mental and physical health. That is something that I do dislike. That is something you have to focus on, and that is something that only comes from experience, and there is not a lot of awareness about it, especially with PIs or guides who just want sort of results from you. So that is something that I do dislike. Yes.
Okay. So what Abhishek has mentioned is again actually the same aspect, but just the flip side of the coin. So what excites me is my results, and how good my students are doing, and whether we can build something more on it. But the other side is what Abhishek mentioned is I think that is applicable to all kinds of fields, where you need to have a balance between your mental and your physical health. That applies to all kinds of fields, So I would say that that's with a little bit of pinch of salt is sometimes when your experiments don't work, students get a little disheartened. So Abhishek is in that terrain right now. So that's what I think he's mentioning. And then you kind of push yourself. So what I would say in that point of time, always let a little time go, give yourself a 2-3 days, go back, ponder over it, discuss, and then come afresh. I think again, this will apply to all kinds of field. If something is not working out, you got to stop, give yourself some time, think over it, and see, PhD is philosophy. Okay, it's doctorate in philosophy. You need to develop that philosophical angle, which is thinking and then acting, So I think it's the same thing that we have mentioned, but I have given you a little different perspective about it. Yeah.
Thanks, Anuradha. Okay. The next question is, to be a doctor at a hospital at a particular category, do we need a PhD? I personally want to be a cardiologist or a cardiothoracic surgeon. This is by Ahana Vivek. She's in the 8th standard. Yeah.
That's a great question, Ahana. Mostly, in the US or in the Europe, again, developing countries you go, research and hospitals, they coexist. You'll probably have the hospitals around the research center, or you will have a research center within the hospital. But in India, this concept is still lacking. But if you look at AIIMS in Delhi, they have a hospital and they are very aggressively into some of the most fantastic research ideas and data which is coming out. Okay, so I would say go ahead, be a cardiologist, but that cardiology will tell you about the physiological aspects of the human being. But if you want to go into the science that is deep within the cell, and to understand that why a person is having a cardiac issue, then you have to understand what is going at the cellular level and not at the physiological level. So for that, go ahead and get a PhD. And then you will be an excellent researcher who will be able to understand not only physiology of a body, but also the molecular aspects within the cell. And that's a great lethal combination, I would say.
Yeah, but obviously you cannot become a cardiologist by doing a PhD alone. Right?
No, not at all. Not at all.
You want to be a cardiologist or you want to be a medical doctor, you have to go out and get an MBBS and an MD.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, there's another question here. How many to complete all of this?
Okay. So a bachelor's is usually 3 years. And a master's, depending on whether you do it in India, abroad, it can range from 1 to 2 years. PhDs are at a minimum, I would say, of 3.5 years, and can go up till actually 6 years as well. If you're really unlucky, even maybe 7 years. But for that, you have to be really unlucky with your work. If after that you decide to join the industry, you can join immediately after your PhD. But if you want to sort of go into research in a research institute and university, you would be expected to do a postdoc for 3 to 5 years, and then you would join as an assistant professor for university research.
And all, it's not like when you're doing PhD, you're getting paid. Postdoc, you get paid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
you start getting paid when you start your PhD, and it stays for life.
Right. So Abhishek, there was something that had come up in a conversation long back, that there's a difference between doing a PhD in India and PhD abroad. What is the difference?
So the most important difference is that whatever you order, whatever the resources you need, come much quicker abroad. And this is unfortunately the harsh truth, that it takes about, if you need certain chemicals in India, you have to pre-order them from 2 weeks in advance till maybe even a few months, depending on what sort of chemicals they are. But here in Europe, in US, they arrive fairly quickly. So that sort of shortens your timeline a little bit, because you don't need to plan months and months in advance. You get your resources, you have access to resources more quickly. And the other thing is, I know of a lot of instances in India where where the PhD stipends, especially when they come from the government, they do not come exactly on time. So there are months where you will get paid eventually, but there are months where you don't, you are sort of surviving off of what you've saved till now. But here, because of the very strict labor laws, especially and employment laws, you get paid on time. At the last week of every month, you get your salary in your bank account. So it's that is one thing I think which is quite important for deciding where people want to do their PhDs.
So again, in India, depending upon what kind of institute have you selected, that will depend upon how much of planning. So in India also, there are some very good institutes. In fact, NCBS also and TFIR also, where you need a little bit of planning. So of course, there are ways to, order for a certain kind of reagents that you need at the last moment, and there are ways to get it. But of course, I mean, it's basically what kind of lab you are getting into in India or abroad. So again, I would say that for that you need to look at the kind of background probably the principal investigator has, and the kind of publications and the kind of history. So usually when you get into a lab, it's always good to talk to students, alumni of that lab. It's always good to go and meet the PI yourself, or probably have a chat with him once you meet him, or online. Nowadays, a lot of PIs, even I meet a lot of students online. So you need to do your homework. And again, I would say that would apply to probably any kind of job. You probably, the grass is always greener on the other side. When you're in India, you think it's abroad is better. When you're in abroad, students say, oh, India is much better. So it's just a matter of perspective and where you get into.
So
You're muted,
Suniti, you are on mute.
Yeah. Another question from Dhananjay. What will be the ratio of the number of opportunities and number of passed out students year on year for masters and for PhD students?
Oh, that kind of data I don't have, but I can tell you about my institute. All over India, it's really difficult for me. So for master students, we have an intake of 40 students per program. We are currently running 3 programs. So around 40 students, out of 40 students, usually 38 to 39 students pass. There's always 1 or 2 students who probably get some kind of a course not granted, or something like that, because sometimes they're ill, or they are not able to submit some projects on time, or some assignments on time.
Mm-hmm.
But if I would say, then every year 40, 30, 35, 35, 35, around 100, 110 students pass out from my institute at least. And that's master's levels. It's a very small number, as compared to undergrad.
Yeah, the question also included opportunities. So what happens typically to these 110 students who pass out?
Great. So most of the students pursue higher education. They go for a PhD. Most of it's like, I would say 90%. I'm quite affirmative about it. 90% of students go for higher education, whether it's PhD in India or whether there's PhD abroad. Around 10% of students are, they like to have this industry exposure. Some of them become entrepreneurs. Okay, and some of them also go into science communication, supporting, they become assistant or associate editors for good publishing groups like Nature Publishing. Springer is there, Elsewhere is there, and things like that. So there are a lot of, and some people go into IPR also. IPR is a big thing, proper intellectual property rights. Yeah.
Okay, so Harshini has this question: are there placements after bachelor's?
Yes. So there is, I at least know of one particular field where there are placements, which is scientific writing, because we've had recruiters who've come for scientific writing when I was doing my bachelor's. There are companies that scientists can be quite infamous for writing sort of complicated sentences in their research paper, and so like the job of these scientific writing companies is that they sort of help these scientists put forth their views or their papers into simpler language, so that it's easier to understand, and it sort of makes the whole process, it makes it easy for from it to go to the lab to the general public, so that is those sort of companies do recruit after bachelor's.
Any
So
others? So scientific writing is one area. Anything else that comes to mind after bachelor's? No.
I would again recommend that after bachelor's, I think for any field for that matter, bachelor's is not enough education. You need to go for a master's program or some other technical kind of program. So I think I would definitely, I'm not very for getting placed after bachelor's, but it can definitely be a stopgap till you want to go back into your educational field. Scientific writing, helping in research work. You can be a laboratory assistant. You can be a lab technician, and things like that. But
for pure sciences, just bachelor's is just not enough specialization to make an impact.
Absolutely.
So clearly there is a need to go for masters and preferably a PhD to really be able to make an impact. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, there are two students here who are interested in the genetic fields. So I think both of them are in the 10th standard right now. So both are asking, what should I choose in 11th and 12th? And yeah, both actually. And which coaching should I take in 11th and 12th?
Choose science and maths for genetics. Okay, whether you want to go into genetics or genetic engineering, science and maths. Coaching, I would say, there are places where you can definitely get coached. Okay, so I wouldn't say no for it, but see how much you can withstand, because 11th and 12th is going to be extremely challenging for you to kind of complete assignments or the reading material which you're expected to read. Okay, so try to understand. I would say, instead of just memorizing something, try to understand it. Try to do your own. You have Google now. Google will probably give you most of the answers. Okay, so try to do your more horizontal reading around it, instead of joining too many coaching classes and hearing from too many people. Okay, so I think it's important for you to score well so that you can go into the field of bachelor's in genetics, for example. Okay, and so I would say at 11th and 12th, focus. Okay, understand whether you want to really pursue. Talk to a few people. You can go and meet certain scientists who work in the field of genetics. Scientists are very open for such kind of interactions. So that's my take. If Abhishek wants to add something more,
what I can tell, at least from my experience, was that I did coaching in 11th and 12th, and but of course this is like very niche just for me, right? It honestly did not help me a lot, because like I said, in my first year I did not clear the entrance exams that I wanted to clear, and during the second year I did it all by myself, and I did. So it's actually studying by yourself, really putting your time and effort, that helps. The thing with coaching classes is that you spend so much time in there that you don't really get time to study by yourself. So I would actually say that it's more advantageous to study by yourself. Yeah.
I think we have time for maybe Suniti, if we can take just one final question and then wrap up. We have
it makes sense. I mean,
yeah, if we can you, Suniti, your voice was not clear. Can we take one final question and then close it?
Yeah, so let's see. So I think we have, there's another one here. Does the workload become too much in 11th and 12th sometimes? If so, how would you recommend dealing with it? So that's what I think she said, that, I mean, try and do that work by yourself rather than go for a coaching class, because
and that's a general question. I think that it's not related to biological sciences. So perhaps we'll address it in a different
forum. And a few students have been asking about psychology, and We will be having a couple of young professionals in psychology. Just wait for our information from us. We if you're on our mailing list, we will send it to you, and you will know when those sessions are. All right. So okay,
Cool.
yeah, I think we've taken up. We've addressed all the questions here. There's something on science fields in the military, but again, we will have someone from defense come in here and talk to you, someone young and more of your age, rather than a general or a brigadier. So hopefully we will.
Yes, but there are options in the military as well for science, definitely.
A young
Suniti, I think we are having trouble hearing you. So okay, so let's wrap up. So I just want to thank Abhishek and Anuradha for being with us, giving us time from their really busy schedule, and telling us their perspectives. So these are their perspectives, and I think the lesson for us is do your own research. What you heard today can be good starting pointers for you to think about this area. And thank you very much, Abhishek and Anuradha, and wish you both all the very best.
Thank you
Thank
for
you so
having us.
Thank
Okay.
you for having us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And thank you all for our patient hearing. Thank you so much. Yeah. Bye. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye-bye. I'm going to close the
Bye-bye.
meeting now. Yeah.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.